Hey guys, welcome back to another tier list video. I know that I have done one not too long ago with the removed items one, but I guess to kind of explain, since I don't really talk too much about my own personal life, I actually injured my hand. I was going to work on everything wrong with Master Yi next, but it's gonna take a while before I can comfortably type a lot on my keyboard, and so I decided I can do this instead, because you might remember a few months ago I made a video on all of the best ultimates in League of Legends. So I made like a tier list on all the ultimates, and I thought I could do one for passives Q, W, and E. I think it would be a lot of fun. Now, I guess some preliminary information. I am fully aware that I have a hard time remaining consistent with my criteria as I go through every champion, and so I decided to do for today was to actually write out what I'm going to be doing. So here are our categories. We have top 10, which I will do after I rank every single champion. I'm basically going to take 10 out of Busted and then put it into top 10. Busted, these are passives that the vast majority of champions would be much more effective on, rather the vast majority of champions would really want to have. Then you have Pretty Good, which is like, it's a very solid passive. It's not the best one out there, but I don't think anyone would complain to have it. And then it's okay. It might not be the strongest or most effective passive, and it probably is only allowed to exist on the champion in question. And then you have Niche but Usable. Once again, it might be only a very specific type of champion would want to use, or kind of like a class of champions. And then you have Bad, which are, I don't really think anyone would want to take this, like it's not going to be the envy of anybody. And then we have question mark, which is for the champions whose passives basically are their kit, in the sense that like you can't put it onto something, you can't splash it into another champion, since you need to carry the rest of their abilities like Q, W, E, and Ultimate. So here's the criteria. We have passives will be graded in a vacuum, isolated from the rest of their kit. Things like, for example, I know like in the Ultimate video I talked about Darius' ultimate without his passive, even though they are very closely intertwined with each other. It's assuming as if Silas could steal your passive, if that's the best way to put it. AD and AP ratios will be retained. Even though last time for the Ultimate video I made a rule that you can have AD and AP ratios converted into one another, kind of like how Silas does for attack damage ultimates or physical damage ultimates, but for this one around we're actually going to contain the original ratios and scaling, because I feel like it would be a little bit broken for some passives to be able to work on an AP champion or vice versa, so we're going to stick to it just like that. Now, any contextual factors will be judged on a case-by-case basis, but for the most part, if the conditions can easily be replicated, then I will find a way to, I guess, replicate it. Otherwise, they'll just go into the question mark category for, once again, stuff like Alawi's passive, because if we take a look at Alawi's passive, there is no way anyone can use this outside of Alawi, right? Because you specifically need her, I guess, other stuff. Now, I suppose you could make an argument that you can slap on Alawi's, like, technical interaction with her W, like if the champion has an auto attack reset like Garen Q, maybe, but I feel like that would just be too many what if scenarios. So something like Prophet of an Elder God will be in the question mark category for no better reason other than it just would take way too much mental gymnastics to work out. That is going to be the rule set for today. I will try my best to stick to it, but inevitably with like the 160 something champions there are, I might end up slipping in one way or another. So, let's get started. The first passive will be Aatrox. Aatrox's passive is pretty good. So Deathbringer Stance is one of those abilities that, like, I feel it has a purpose and it can definitely exist outside of Aatrox's kit. The clause of whether or not, like, the cooldown of Deathbringer Stance is, can be reduced. I feel like because it's a very generic one, for example, basic attacks on hit, ability casts and whatnot, that can easily splash into another champion. You won't get the 4 seconds with the sweet spot because no other champion has Darkened Blade, but the 2 seconds thing from like basic attacks any champion can use. It gives you a decent amount of max health damage and a decent amount of healing. I don't think anyone would complain. It's a pretty good passive. Ahri's passive is busted. Essence Thief, it's essentially Triumph on steroids. It might not be as good on AD champions, but for a lot of like AP champions or assassins, being able to heal yourself and just have like lane sustain is so important to have for like most mages. I feel like a lot of mages or even like some assassins or AP champions can make a lot of use of this, and especially when you score kills or takedowns, you can regenerate a lot of HP. This essentially prevents you, well, not prevents you, this essentially allows you to not have to worry about taking Triumph. You could just take Presence of Mind. So I'm going to put it in busted. Next one's going to be Akali. So Akali's, I believe it's called Assassin's Mark. it's an interesting one because the clause is to damage an enemy champion with an ability, which means other champions can apply it. And then it creates that ring, which you can just like walk out and then walk back in. You get that bonus movement speed, and then it empowers your next basic attack to have double range and deal bonus damage. So again, the whole like, oh, is this going to be balanced on a ranged champion? We'll just assume that it can be on a melee champion, or maybe some ranged champions might be allowed to use it. In any case, this is a very, very powerful ability to have because some champions have spammable abilities that they can very easily use to empower the next basic attack. The reason why it's balanced on Akali is because she has energy, and energy is a finite resource that cannot be improved through purchase of items. So if you had this on a manaless champion or a mana champion, this will definitely be very powerful, and it has hybrid ratios. So this is a very, very busted passive to have. Speaking of busted passives, Akshan. And I'm actually going to skip it, and I know exactly why I'm going to put this here. It will be a top 10 passive. Akshan's passive is horse. This passive has passives. Like, look at this. You get, first of all of your attacks can fire twice. On-hit effects galore. If this would basically be a far better Master Yi passive if you think about it. Like, imagine if Master Yi had Dirty Fighting, or imagine if Vayne had Dirty Fighting. Of course, some champions or a lot of champions are balanced around the fact that they have a specific passive and that determines their playstyle. But in the case of like just Dirty Fighting, I don't think there's a single champion or like physical damage dealer who wouldn't want to have Dirty Fighting. It does a ton of damage. You get bonus movement speed if you basically can do like any kind of attack move strategy, and the additional shot applies on-hit effects 100% effectiveness. You get a 3-hit passive. You also get a shield. This is one of the best passives in the game, hands down. I don't think anyone would disagree with this. Next passive is going to be Alistar. I'm gonna put it in, it's okay. It's not the best passive out there. It's essentially a different version of Ahri's passive, but it's a bit more situational. I think it could have a purpose on some tanks. It would make certain tanks really resilient, but there are better, I guess, sustained passives out there. Next one's going to be Amumu, niche but has use. This is the definition of a niche ability. This is explicitly magic damage. So you can't be like, oh, you can apply this on a physical damage dealer, but the 10% bonus true damage can be quite valuable in those circumstances. So I think I'll put Amumu in niche but usable. I don't know why Alune is here, but we're gonna just skip her right away. Anivia, her passive is bad. Some people may argue it's a really good passive because it allows her to essentially cheat death, but death passives, especially Anivia's, is really... I feel like a lot of Anivia players would rather have an actual functional passive, one that works while they're still alive, so this will be a bad passive. Next one's gonna be Annie, Busted. This move is stupid as hell. It is balanced because Annie has long cooldowns on her abilities. If you had a spammable ability like Rise or Cassiopeia, actually, probably Cassiopeia is a better one because Rise wants his passive specifically, but Cassiopeia, this would be the best she'd be the best champion in the game. I don't think there's a single champion who would not want to have this because you essentially make it so all of your damaging abilities, or I guess in this context, her Q, W, and ultimate, are empowered. Like, why would no one want this? Next one's Aphelios. He's going to be a question mark, and we all know why. It is his entire kit, so you can't really do that. Ashe, her passive is also busted. On hit slow, she has a super powered frozen mallet. I don't think I need to say anything more. Now, you might be thinking, oh, this needs critical strikes to work. No, you don't need crit chance to actually like make this passive work. For one, just having an on hit slow is super broken, and it does bonus damage at base. So yeah, like Frost Shot, just slap this on any champion with a ranged ability or like ranged auto attacks, and you're basically, disgusting. And imagine if this is on a champion who could actually kite, like Vayne. That would be... I don't want to imagine that. Aurelion Sol, his passive will also be in question mark because it's just the, what is that called? The Celestial Fragments or whatever it's called? Yeah, Stardust. So these are very specific to his kit. You can't apply to anyone else. Azir, his passive is the Turret. It's a niche, but has a use, right? You could use this. It's kind of a meh passive. I wouldn't say it's a bad one because it could help, right? It can make it really good for anti-sieging. Bard, his passive is pretty good. This could go on to a different champion, right? Because like the meeps are native to that specific ability. So applying Traveler's Call to a different character or a different champion, you essentially have free mana restoration just from running around the map. You can roam really well, you get a lot of experience, and then the chimes can do a lot of damage. So it's a pretty good passive. The reason why I'm not putting it in busted is because it specifically requires a champion who is comfortable leaving lane and roaming. Like if you want to put this on a jungler, maybe, but I don't think it's quite good enough to be in busted tier, because busted tier, this has to be really good for everybody. Actually, now that I think about it, Ari might go down to pretty good because it might be too situational, and again, we're retaining the original AP ratios on the ability, so AD champions may not want it. Once again, because there are like 160 champions, some champions I'll go really fast just so that we don't have like an hour-long video. Next one will be Bel'Veth. It's okay. You get a lot of attack speed, and you have no attack speed cap. You also have a few like contingencies that make it so you don't do nearly as much effectiveness with all of your on-hit effects, but being able to gain bonus attack speed and just from using an ability, this will require some champions, like the champion has to obviously have a very spammable ability, and in Bel'Veth's case she has Void Surge, so it's okay. I might put it in niche. In fact, I actually will, because niche, it specifically is if you want to go a hyper attack speed on-hit build. So yeah, let's crank. It's okay. Mana barrier, right? If you fall below half amount of HP, it's like a lifeline passive. It's not the worst out there, but I don't think it's like number one. Brand's passive, pretty good. All damaging abilities apply a burn damage onto your target. So if you have, Cassiopeia E or even, I don't know, Gangplank Q or something like that. And the only condition with Brand is that you have to land 3 abilities. So it just says abilities. It doesn't say it has to be these specific ones. And even if it did, we could just say, oh, just replace it with the new champion's QW. This is a really powerful passive. Maybe the mana restoration might put it into busted category, because for the only reason why it's balanced on Brand is for the fact that all of his abilities are skill shots and conflagration is the only one that's a point and click. So in that case, I actually might put it in busted, because giving damage over time, percent max health damage over time, and a massive explosion, some champions could apply this a lot better and get off that triple explosion. Braum's passive is also busted. You damage anyone with an ability or a basic attack, or it could just be Q, and a few auto attacks in, boom, they're stunned. This is a universal stun, kind of like Annie, just on a more, I guess, team-supportive type context. Really good. Briar's it's okay. The only reason why it's not the greatest is because you have no health regeneration. You will be forced with this condition. Some champions can bypass this, like, if you have, let's say, Vladimir might want to use this, but then again, it's AD ratio, so you want to put this on an AD champion. It's an okay passive. I don't think it's the best out there. Just because of the fact that you have no base health regeneration, and some champions may not like that. So you need someone with good neutral pressure if you want to apply this to someone else, or make them a jungler. Caitlyn with headshot, it's a pretty good passive. Some champions could apply this a lot faster, right? If you have an auto attack reset or some way to just get a lot of on-hit effects quickly, you do a lot of damage, but you don't have your little snap trap or 90 caliber nest, so you don't get the full range of this passive. Even so, it's a lot of damage. Camille's passive, also pretty good. It's a, it's like an on-hit shield for the specific attack type, and most champions do either physical or magic damage. They don't do both, so it's a good passive for lane, and it can provide you with a decent amount of trade potential, so it's a good passive. Cassiopeia's passive is bad. It's okay on Cassiopeia, but all it is movement speed. I get that, movement speed for some champions is really desired, but that's it? Just a passive that gives movement speed? It's a pretty bad one. Cho'Gath's is okay. Whenever killing an enemy, you get health and mana. It could be good for lane sustain, not so much after the fact, so it's an okay passive. Corki is a niche one. So Corki's is interesting. It converts your basic attack to do hybrid damage and more magic damage. However, you do get the package. Now the package is a special ability, it's its own ability. Like, you might not get Valkyrie, but you'll get special delivery, and special delivery is busted. So there are use cases for Corki. It's just niche again, and not everyone wants, like, you're basically getting mixed damage and then the package. So you technically have no passive, there's no damage increase from this whatsoever, but it can work, it can definitely work. Darius' passive is busted. Oh my goodness. Look at this. Massive bleed damage with fantastic ratios, and then 230 attack damage at level 18. Even at level 11, it's 85 attack damage just from getting 5 stacks. Darius is balanced by the fact that he can't get 5 stacks very quickly, but imagine if you had this on Renekton, or rather no, that wouldn't work for Renekton, but let's say Urgot or something like that. You get 5 stacks instantly just from proccing W, or any champion who can attack very quickly, like, let's say Garen. You can get 5 stacks from 1 E, just like that. It would be a very, very broken passive to have, and a lot of AD champions, if not most AD champions, would want this, like Zed with Darius passive. Disgusting. Next champion is going to be Diana, Moonsilver Blade. It's a pretty good passive, It's a decent amount of damage, and it's like a 3-hit passive, or like a 3-hit proc. You also get bonus attack speed, and a lot of it, especially if you can cast an ability. So a manaless champion who can cast abilities a lot, this is not half bad to use. So I think it's a pretty good passive. Draven's passive is okay. So this might be tricky. He can rack up stacks whenever he catches an axe, and obviously that's a condition endemic going to him. Otherwise, he just gets 40 gold. So maybe in that case, it's not the greatest passive out there because you essentially have no passive. In that case, you know what, maybe I'll just put it in bad because there's no way you can get stacks unless you have spinning axe. So yeah, we'll put it in bad. Mundo's passive is pretty good. Now, you might think this is one of those passives that has a niche. It's a niche one because it's responsive to crowd control, but crowd control is such a universal mechanic that it would find a lot of reasons to be used. However, you also get a lot of max health regeneration, and for champions who don't have health costs, this is just free HP regeneration. So, a good passive. Echo's passive is also, I would say, it's okay. Like, we can assume that, you know, auto attacks and then damaging abilities could get to the 3-hit passive. The bonus movement speed would also be really nice. I just feel like, you know, I don't know how much I want, or maybe I might put it in pretty good, because again, it only works on AP champions because the AP ratio, otherwise it doesn't really do that much damage. Echo's very scaling oriented, not base damage oriented. You'll notice that a lot of his damaging abilities, or all of his abilities, have very high AP ratios, but relatively middling base damage. So it's okay. Elise is question mark because, you know, it's her shape-shifting, and I mean, you have this, but you need this. So I don't know how we want to put it. We'll just put in question mark. Evelyn's passive, busted. Oh my lord, I don't care about the HP regeneration. Actually, the HP regeneration would be stupid if it was on like a Diana or something. Like, or I don't know, anyone. But just having passive stealth or camouflage is stupid. This is such a good ability. It makes Evelyn the champion that she is, and what makes it so terrifying to fight against. It's a busted ability. Ezreal's passive is, you know, it's okay. You know, spell, some champions can maintain that attack speed buff a lot more, but as we'll go further in the video, there are some other champions with better attack speed ramping passives. Fiddlesticks is bad. It's basically just a ward. Like, it's just this thing, the Scarecrow. It does nothing. You might say, oh, you don't have to worry about, no, it's bad. It's a ward. Fiddlesticks basically doesn't have a passive. Easiest way to put it. Fiora's passive is busted. Yes, you don't get Grand Challenge, so you don't have, you know, you can't get 4 vitals all at once. But oh my goodness, imagine any AD champion with this. They get bonus max health true damage. That right there, just max health true damage, is the stupidest thing in the game. It should not exist, but it does. This passive on other champions would be so stupid. I know I keep saying stupid, that's the word I'm going to repeat for this video, but Duelist Dance just should not, it's bounced on Fiora, and even then it's not bounced on her. So imagine a Zed, or not Zed, but like any champion that can just like go around you really quickly. Irelia, oh my goodness, I don't want to think about that. Fizz's passive is bad. It's just ghosting and then a small bit of damage reduction on every instance of damage. You might say, oh, that can be really good against dot damage, but there are better passives out there. It's not really that good. Gallus' passive it's okay. I'd say an occasional attack empowerment on his on his passive, but it does require magic resistance. Well, you can go AD and AP if you want, but it's okay. It's not the best thing out there. Gangplank's passive is also okay. You won't be able to reset it because you won't get Powder Keg. You'll just get the periodic damage, but the periodic damage is really freaking good. And if you apply this to a ranged champion, that might help for trades and whatnot, but you just won't be able to reset it. Garen's passive is pretty good. HP regeneration out of combat. It increases your lane endurance and it increases your staying power in the late game. You don't have to recall if you get chunked down to like half HP. You just sit for a bit and you regenerate a lot of health. Right there next to Mundo, like Mundo's passive has the crowd control kind of thing. So it's about roughly the same, but healing this is one that I guess similar to Ahri, where having a sustain passive could make it so certain champions just never have to leave lane, ever. Gnar, question mark, it's Mega Gnar, right? Unless you want to give Mega Gnar to other champions, which would be kind of crazy to think about, but yeah. Gragas's passive it's okay. It's a neutral sustain passive. Manaless champions may want this, but they, you know, the cooldown and whatnot, I feel like some there are just better healing things out there. I feel like, you know, we could have, once again, Ahri's passive or like Mundo's passive has a little bit more use, but a champion who can spam their abilities, you might think, oh, some champions who don't have to worry about mana costs. But the thing is, Gragas can build AP items and he can spam this a lot. It has a static cooldown, right? And even if they brought the static cooldown to 8 seconds or whatever, you can't accelerate how fast it goes down. So Graves question mark because it's his shotgun, and that is a very weird mechanic to have. Now, just for, I guess, spoiler alert, Jhin and Senna will be ranked, but Graves not so much, mostly because Graves, how would it work to give a shotgun attack to other champions? Like Jhin and Senna, it just changes their basic attack, but it's a similar basic attack to every other champion, it's just a single shot. Whereas Graves is a little too complex. Gwen's passive, it's okay. I might just put an okay. Gwen's passive is weird because you won't have Snip Snip, and you won't have Needlework. However, Needlework, the Snip Snip, the reason why it matters on Snip Snip is because you need to get that sweet spot, whereas Needlework is just, just getting hit by the needles. So maybe you can have 1000 cuts applied to Needlework or the new champion's ultimate. So if the new champion has a multi-hitting ultimate or something like that, let's say every Essence Fire on Ari's Spirit Rush will apply 1000 cuts, but either way, it is max health damage and it heals you for a portion of the damage dealt. It's a pretty good passive to have. Some champions, I might put in niche actually, because it specifically requires a type of ultimate or something like that, but I think it's usable even outside of Gwen's kit. Hecarim is also niche but usable. Not every champion has a ton of mobility and movement speed, so you need a champion with a ton of movement speed like Udyr or whatever. Heimerdinger, bad. So Heimerdinger's passive, all it is just that he gets bonus movement speed while near an allied turret or one of his own turrets, but you can't create turrets, so all you get is bonus movement speed near a turret. That's basically ZZ Rot Portal at that point. It's a bad passive. Illaoi, question mark, we established that already. Irelia, her passive is pretty good. Now, Irelia's is one of the better Ezreal kind of passives, where you get bonus attack speed from damaging an enemy champion or whatever with your abilities. So if you have a spammable ability, or let's say, I guess, you know what I mean, like any champion with spammable abilities, they can rack this up, and it also gives you damage on hit. This doesn't really matter because it only applies to Blade Surge, but even just this alone, really good. Ivern, question mark. Or no, actually Ivern has Ivern's passive can splash into other champions. I'm gonna put it in niche because, yeah, it's the definition of niche. I don't think, it makes it so you don't need a leash whenever you want to clear camps, and you can also just move around and stuff like that, so it could be usable for some champions, right? Let's say this could help any champion with terrible clear, so it can allow any support champion, right? Like if you want to put in, I don't know, Seraphine Jungle, she can get Ivern's passive, and that will allow her to clear camps and still do stuff, right? John's passive is niche. It's Tailwind. It allows her to move faster when she's running to other champions, and then allows those champions to move faster when running towards her. It's niche. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's niche. J4, his passive, it's okay. You essentially do bonus damage every so often to a champion based on current health, and they keep nerfing it and buffing it. It used to be 10%, then it went down to 8, then it went down to 6, and it just keeps going back and forth, but it's an okay passive overall. Jax's passive is pretty good. Some champions can apply the attack speed stacking mechanic a lot faster if you gave this to. This would basically be a better Ezreal passive in a way, because you don't need to apply you don't need to use abilities, you just auto attack. And then for certain range champions, this is a built-in lethal tempo, essentially. Jace, bad. You get 40 movement speed for 0.75 seconds whenever you use your ultimate. Horrible. If you have a spammable ultimate like Nidalee or whatever, but even then those champions have better passives. So Jace's passive is not even a passive. Jin's is niche, so it converts your attack into Jhin. You might say some champions with high mobility can make better use of this, but it's an interesting one to have, because let's say you have a champion who doesn't care about basic attacks that much and just wants this, then maybe, but you still need to build attack speed and crit chance to get more AD. So does it really matter? I'm not sure. Maybe Darius might want this, because, or not Darius, but some champion that has very quick trade combos, like some AD champion, they might want Whisper, but overall it's a pretty niche passive. It looks broken on paper, and if it was on a marksman it probably would be, but because you get the slower attack fire, it's not the best. Jinx, her passive is pretty good. It is a very, pentakill-esque passive, and for, I guess, you can give this to Master Yi. No, he needs his base double attack, but you get the point. A bunch of attack speed, a bunch of movement speed. If you give this to maybe certain champions that don't care about their current passive, but they want that hyper snowballing potential, you can give it to them, like Hecarim. Maybe Hecarim might want this, although he does need the Warpath. Kai'Sa's passive is pretty good. Think if you were to get someone who can apply the on-hit effects faster than her, which is kind of rare, but you also just get a ton of max health damage, and right, it's a good passive to have. Of course, you won't have Void Seeker to go along with it, but maybe some champions can apply this a lot better. Callista, broken. Martial Poise, if this was on anyone else, would be so busted. Being able to move, you could chase anyone, you can kite anyone. This is so stupid. It's only balanced because it's on Callista, and Callista's a terrible champion. But this is so incredibly valuable for so many champions. People don't realize this passive is slept on so much. Karma, question mark, because it's mantra related and you don't have mantra. Karthus, broken. You can die and free cast your abilities. For Karthus, it's once again balanced by the fact that his only real damaging ability is Lay Waste. But imagine if Cassiopeia died with this, or imagine if any fast AP champion like Ryze died with this. Okay, we're gonna just machine gun fire for 7 seconds for free. Or actually forget that. Maybe what's another AP champion that can hypercast abilities or just do stuff? I'm not sure. Maybe Veigar, but he needs his passive. So again, we're talking about not many champions want to give up their passive because that passive is very closely intertwined with their kit. At the same time, just I guess we can speculate, right? Kassadin, niche but usable, you get 10% damage reduction from AP damage, so it's okay. Katarina busted. And while we're on that, we're actually going to put Katarina in top 10 because what the fudge? This move is stupid. I need to find a different word for stupid. Let me just bust out my thesaurus. But yeah, veracity. This part doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. This right here. Oh my goodness, you give this to any other champion. This is a dumb passive that only works because it's on Katarina. Don't give this to anyone else. You would break the game. Kale. Kale is in busted. Why is it busted? Because it's Jax's passive. It's basically a Jax passive with extra stuff. At level 6, you become a ranged champion. At level 11, you get AoE damage. At level 16, you get even more range. Kale's passive can go to anyone else. It is really good. Even just this alone, you get scaling attack speed bonus and then bonus movement speed. Right? So this is a better Jax. Jax gets more attack speed, of course, from Relentless Assault. I think he gets 80% attack speed. But Jax would also want this, because imagine a Jax with ranged auto attacks that do splash damage. Enough said. Kale's passive is an infinitely better version of Irelia, Jax, Ezreal, those kinds of passives. Kane's passive is busted. Now you might be wondering, how the hell does Kane's passive work? Okay. We don't actually need to worry about any of this stuff, the transformation of abilities, because we can still we can assume that all he gets is this. It doesn't change any of his other abilities, but imagine getting 45% bonus damage, or, we're not going to count balance because balance can change, but imagine getting bonus magic damage. If Zed, right? Zed's abilities just automatically do 45% more damage, or giving massive battle healing to any champion. Just the bonuses from being Shadow Assassin or Darkin, this whole mechanic can work on other champions. It just won't give you this kind of stuff, right? So Kane's passive is broken. Kenan's passive also broken. If you had spammable abilities, you essentially get a bunch of free stuns. I don't know which one's better, Kennen or Annie, because on one hand, Kennen's passive can stun multiple targets at once, even if it's not all in one, attack. On the other hand, it's more consistent on Annie because you don't have to stack it on the same target. So, one way or another, right? Kha'Zix's passive it's okay. A little bit of bonus damage whenever you enter stealth, or whenever you exit stealth or out of a rush. It's okay. Kindra's passive is also, I think it's bad. So, Kindra's passive does have a benefit to it that's not associated with the increasing the mark damage on Q or whatever. It gives you bonus range. So all you're getting is bonus range. It's bad. The reason why it's bad is because you need jungle camps, and that isolates you in the jungle. But if all you're getting is bonus range, there are better passives out there for junglers. Kled, his passive is pretty good. You have that weird scaling thing because you get a mount, and then the HP goes to that mount, and then while dismounted, you get reduced base health, base attack range and whatnot, or you get more attack range. And these are, I don't know about this, but I'm just assuming that we only have this, right? This part. It allows you to essentially escape any kind of burst damage because you just dismount and then you can go from there. So it's a decent passive and it can be used on other champions. Kog'Maw's passive is bad, we know why. K'Sante's passive, it's okay. K'Sante, all it does is just a little bit of max health damage whenever you damage a champion with an ability. You don't get the true damage, or it doesn't convert into max health true damage because you won't get all out. But it's still usable. LeBlanc, niche, right? It has a purpose and it can work, it's just that not every champion would really want it. Lee Sin. Again, it's okay. After using an ability, you get bonus attack speed. The energy is irrelevant, you just get bonus attack speed. It's kind of like Velvet, where after using an ability, your next 2 attacks get bonus attack speed. But for Lee Sin, I think it might be a bit more consistent because you don't have all the other weird stuff with the auto-attacking and whatnot. Leona, it's also okay. Damaging abilities or damaging a champion with abilities can give you a mark that can do more damage. So it's okay. Lilia's passive is pretty good. On Lilia, she has no easy way to, I guess, fast stack her passive, but if you give it to another AP champion, like I keep mentioning Cassiopeia, then you get free max health. It's like a better brand passive, in a way. But instead of like the big Ring of Fire AoE damage, you get healing. It's good. Lissandra passive, it's pretty good. It is a kill snowballing passive, kind of like Jinx, where if you kill people, then you get a lot of area control and these like spirits that do a ton of damage. It's a decent passive. I think it is good enough to be in pretty good territory. It might be in okay territory, but I think we can put it in pretty good. Lucian, busted. Casting an ability allows you to auto attack twice. It's an inferior version to Akshan's passive, obviously, but it's still a really broken ability because if you have some champions that can attack or use a lot of abilities at once, then they can do a lot of on-hit attacks. On-hit attacks are just super good. Lulu's passive is pretty good. Attacks follow up with a bit of magic damage that comes after. It can work for ranged champions, any ranged champion for that matter, and it gives you a bit of AP damage. Lux, it's okay. It's kind of like Leona, where maybe if you have like very high spammy abilities, like if you do, why do I keep using Cassiopeia as an example? Or like Sylas, right? If Sylas damages you with any of his abilities, but you have to use a damaging ability, so like you have to make sure you land your Q, W, E, like the chain part of your E. But even then, I feel like you would want other ability proc passives. Malphite it's okay. It's a shield every so often. It's a worse version of Garen, Mundo, those kinds of champions, or anyone with better sustain like Ahri or whatnot. It's okay. It's good on Malphite because he has the armor buff whenever he has Granite Shield up where it triples the armor buff, but otherwise, that's it. Malzahar, niche but usable. It is a burst resistant, crowd control resistant shield, but it can be easily popped. If it was easy, or if it had like a threshold to where you had to do a certain amount of damage to actually pop it, then I would put it in pretty good, but it's usable. Maokai is a very good passive. It's good sustain. Some champions can use it a lot more with spammable abilities. It might actually be in busted tier if we think about like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other champions besides Cassiopeia, but let's say, you know, just having sustain from using abilities. If you have a champion with spammable abilities, then there you go, tons of sustain. Master Yi, double strike is busted. This was on a ranged champion. Again, we have Akshan, but even so, Master Yi's passive broken. Lilia's passive is pretty good. It's a better version of Leona and Lux's passive. Misfortune, hers is double tap or love tap or whatever it's called. It's a decent passive. I'm gonna put it in, it's okay. Mordekaiser's passive is busted. It is balanced because it's on Mordekaiser, who is slow and has very slow ways to apply the three hits on it. But if you give any champion AoE magic damage, bonus movement speed, and 40% AP bonus magic damage on hit, remember that's part of his passive. So you give this to Sylas, right? Yeah, Sylas. Give it to Sylas. Oh my god. Alrighty, next one's going to be Morgana. Morgana is niche but usable. Morgana would be like pretty good because it's Spellvamp. It's lifesteal for abilities, right? Yeah, it's like lifesteal for abilities. Can't go wrong with it. For her, she only has Tormented Shadow and Dark Binding, so if you have a champion with better abilities out there, then they can use that and essentially heal a ton of damage. Nefiri it's okay. You don't get all the special interactions with her hounds, her packmates, but they're still there and they can still function as like summons. So maybe some champions can use them, and it's good for certain matchups that rely on landing a very key ability, like Nefiri's Having Nefari's passive makes it so you are never isolated because Kha'Zix is there's allied units around you. Nami's passive is pretty good. Speed you up with any ability that supports an allied champion, and that speed up could be very valuable. Nasus it's okay. The reason why Morgana's is a bit better is because abilities are easier to land than basic attacks. Of course, if you give Nasus's passive to a ranged champion, then they'd be really freaking disgusting, but I still think that I would rather have like Akshan passive than Nasus passive, you know? Even if it's on a ranged champion. Naulus's passive is busted. Your auto attack just roots. Like, by existing. You get a 1.5 second root at level 16 with an auto attack. This is a fantastic passive. And a lot of engaged supports would be 10 times more overpowered if they had that passive. Like, imagine if Pyke had that passive. Nico, niche, right? It's or it's like, disguising. It's niche. I can't really say anything else. Nidalee, question mark, because it's her cougar form thing, right? Or does it actually have an application? Let's see. There's the prowl point. Yeah, the prowl component. So it's okay then, I guess. That extra movement speed is good for tempo, and if you're, chasing after someone, that could be good, maybe. It's okay. Neela's passive is niche. Bonus experience, and then the healing thing. You could use this passive outside of bot lane, right? You could definitely use this outside of bot lane, but I think the experience buff is hard to quantify, right? It looks really broken, but I feel like, I don't know. I mean, maybe on a ranged champion this will be like really abusable, but I'll just leave it there for now. Nunu it's okay. Bonus attack speed and movement speed to yourself and then to like nearby allies, and then your attacks do like a little bit of cleaving damage. It's okay. Nocturne is pretty good. I think some champions could use this passive a lot better, and then just having AoE damage is nice to have, and healing to go along with it. Olaf's passive is busted. Low HP, you get like 100 attack speed and then a ton of lifesteal. This is stupid. This is a really broken passive. Oriana's passive is bad. All you get from this is bonus attack damage or bonus on-hit damage. You don't get the ball and all the properties, you just get this thing right here, Clockwork Winding. It's bad. Ornn's passive, broken. If any champion can build items without having to recall, and not even just that, it's not even the ability to build items without having to recall, you get this. Forget Brittle, you're not going to get Brittle because you need the rest of his abilities, but this right here, upgrading items, you can give your team 5,000 gold or more, and you get bonus resistances. You get 30% resistances every time you upgrade. This is definitely a scaling passive, and you could say it's niche, but no, this is freaking broken passive. I don't care what anyone says. Pantheon question mark, because it's Mortal Will, it applies strictly to him. Poppy is pretty good. You get a shield and then ranged auto attack, and that shield is very good. It's like Camille, but not as easy to accomplish because you gotta pick up the buckler. Pyke is niche. You can't gain HP, however you can regenerate HP whenever you're out of combat, you just need lethality. So, niche. Kiana is bad. For Kiana, so it allows you to deal bonus damage to a target every so often, but you can reset that by using, what's it called, Terra Shape. If you don't reset that, it's a 25-second target immunity, so it's an infinitely worse like Jarvan the 4th passive or Nautilus passive. So Kiana's is bad. Quinn is, I'm gonna say it's okay. So with Quinn, the way it works is that every so often you mark a target with to do bonus damage, and Blinding Assault and Vault and Sky Strike, we can assume that works on other champions too. So you get a bit of bonus damage. You can think of it like almost like a Riven passive, but it's a worse version of Riven's passive. The main reason it's good on Quinn is because with heightened senses, you get bonus attack and movement speed. If you got this, then it'd be a very good passive, but otherwise it's okay. Rakan is also an okay passive, I think. Or I might put it in pretty good. You get a shield from, while in combat, and then basic attacks and ability hits can reduce the cooldown on that shield. So if you have, you put this on an AP carry like Ryze, I keep saying Ryze and Cassiopeia, but just anyone who can with an AP ratio, then you can get the shield a lot faster. Rakan doesn't have too much of a luxury to auto attack or use abilities, so you have someone who can spam abilities a lot more, you get a more shield. Rammus is niche. If you build a lot of armor, it's good. If you don't build a lot of armor, it's bad. Rek'Sai is question mark because you need burrow. That's all it works off of is burrow. Rel it's niche. She steals armor and magic resist whenever damaging enemy champions. For some, they can attack a lot more, right? Rel doesn't attack too fast, but it'll only work against tanks. Renata, it's okay. It's a worse version of Milio's passive, basically. Renekton, question mark, because it's Fury. Rengar, busted. This Give Rengar's passive to someone else. Are you kidding me? You get tons of attack damage from killing people. The Bone Tooth Necklace comes with Unseen Predator, so you get tons of attack. You get a Rabadon's death cap worth of AD. On top of being able to leap out of brushes. No. This passive is freaking dog shit. No, not dog shit. Dog shit means bad. This passive is bullshit. I don't care what anyone says. Riven's is pretty good. It is, if you have someone who can spam a lot of abilities, I don't know if there are any champions who can spam more than her, but it's a good passive to have. You do a lot more damage. Rumble's is... it's okay. So with Rumble, you still rack up heat. You can still generate heat, right? The heat will not empower any of your abilities because it's specifically on those abilities. But if you overheat, you get a lot of attack speed, a lot of on-hit damage, but you silence yourself. If you didn't silence yourself, then it would be a broken passive because you just get free on-hit damage, and a lot of it too. But otherwise, it has the use, and it can exist outside of Rumble, but otherwise, yeah. Ryze is going to be niche but usable. He gains bonus mana based on his AP. Some AP champions might really want this, and yeah, that's about it. But it's good on Ryze because he has mana ratios on his damaging abilities, but for the most part, it might be just more of a niche thing. Samira, it's okay. You get you get bonus movement speed with style stacks, and then you also can get the like this thing right here if you're a ranged champion, I guess, or I guess melee champions will always have this, and then you get that dash in with the CC follow up. So there are some uses for Daredevil Impulse. It's just that it's it's not the best thing out there. So Sejuani's Frost Armor is also, it's okay, right? You get a lot of armor and magic resist. Is it just armor or is it magic resist too? Oh, so you get all of that. It's good for, it's like a slightly more effective Malzahar passive in my opinion. It doesn't give you CC immunity, but you get slow immunity and that stuff. And then of course, the stun portion. Maybe some champions with stuns, like a lot more frequent stuns, can use this more effectively. I can't really think of that many champions with a ton of stuns in their kit, but if they do, then they get 10% bonus health damage. So it's a decent passive. I wouldn't say pretty good though. Senna is busted. Why do I put Senna in busted while Jhin is somewhere else? Because Senna can give you bonus attack damage, bonus attack range, bonus crit chance, and then bonus lifesteal if you get this. Plus, all of your attacks do 20% bonus AD and get a bit of bonus movement speed. So for a champion who doesn't care too much about auto-attacking, like auto-attack speed, this is a really, really stupid broken passive. Seraphine's passive it's okay. I'm pretty sure it's like after using X amount of abilities, your next attack does like a bunch of damage. So, it's usable. I think there are better ones out there. Set passive is busted. All of your attacks attack twice basically. And not only that, but you get Mundo's HP regeneration, or more, to be honest. Yeah, you get a ton of HP regeneration. So this right here, yeah, I would still say Akshan's passive is better, but you can't go wrong with this either. Shaco's passive it's okay. It's good on Shaco because he can blink behind you. Maybe you can give this to someone who can dash behind you really easily, like Shen or whatever, but speaking of Shen, busted. It's balanced on Shen, right? But if you had someone who can spam abilities, because if Shen affects at least one other champion with an ability, key barrier is reduced. So some champions can just have a permanent shield up by spamming their abilities, like once again, Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is one of those champions that she would make so many passives disgusting. So yeah, Shen's key barrier is one of the best passives in the game, in my opinion. And I think he might definitely go into top 10. It's only balanced by him because he has slow attack speed and not that many ways to damage you with abilities. But you give this to Zed, right? You can give this to Zed, and Zed has a bunch of shields. There you go. Shyvana, bad. Maximum 25 armor and magic resist from 4 dragons and Elder Drake. And then of course you get 20% bonus damage to dragons, but come on, no one cares. Singe, niche but usable. You get bonus movement speed whenever walking near allies or enemy champions. Maybe some champions will want this, maybe, I'm not sure. Scion, his passive is, it's okay, right? Ranged champions, actually. You know, if this was on a ranged champion, maybe it would be pretty good, actually, because Scion can get kited, but if you attach this to, I don't know, a Vayne, you get 100% lifesteal, 1.75 attack speed, 10% max health damage on hit, ghosting, like, you actually, maybe we might put this in busted, because if this was on an AD champion, or like a ranged AD champion, maybe. Well, no, they won't get that much HP. It's good on Scion because he can survive a lot of HP loss. Some, like squishy champions, they would die a lot faster, so maybe we'll put it in, it's okay. Sivir, it's okay on hit movement speed, but Akshan has that too, so there you go. Skarner is niche but has use. Skarner spires can exist outside of Skarner. This can be applied to everybody, right? Everyone gets the movement speed and whatnot, but because you don't get on-demand access to the crystal charge, since you don't get crystal venom or impale, it might not be that good. Even so, maximum mana regeneration, tons of attack speed, for some champions this can make them basically unbeatable in the jungle. Sona is niche but usable. Sona's passive you won't get any of this, you won't get power cord, but you get this right here, and getting basic ability haste, some champions would definitely really like that. You can do damaging abilities, you can do healing abilities and stuff like that. It can work. Soraka, her passive is bad. She gets bonus movement speed when running towards injured targets, but that's good on Soraka since she's a healer. For everyone else, no one cares. Swain, I would put it in bad. So for Swain, you actually do have, it can be used outside of him. Obviously you need Vision of the Empire and Never Move to get, like, you know, on-demand soul fragments, but you can also get soul fragments just for him killing champions. You can still use this, you just get much less opportunity to use this, so it will be in bad. Sylas, his passive is busted. You can spam abilities and just damage everything around you, and it can work on AD champions. It's like an infinitely better version of, I forget who I was talking about before, but it's a better version of Riven's passive in my opinion because it does AoE damage, and in, like, oh, not Riven, it does work on AD champions too because it is 130% AD. So yes, the AP ratio is helpful, but AD champions can definitely use this, and you get 25% bonus attack speed, right? Like, there's some champions that can spam this a lot. Let's say, I don't know, freaking, maybe, just, I don't want to say Cassiopeia. Oh, well, how will this work if it's on a ranged champion? Will it come out from around them, or will it come out from where the attack lands? I'm not sure. Either way, busted. Syndra's passive is... It's okay. So, you won't get the empowered abilities, right? Because you don't get that, but you do get bonus mana. And then you also get 15% ability power and 120 stacks. So, it is still usable on other champions, other AP champions. I just don't know how much better it would be compared to other champions, but maybe, right? Like, there's a use. Should I put it in niche? Not sure. But no, it's more of a general passive still. Tahm Kench, busted. On hit damage according to your maximum health. And a lot of it at that. Who cares about Tongue Lash and all that stuff? No, just the on hit damage. Look at that damage, it's insane. 3 more to go. Oh my goodness, this is such a long list. Talia. Talia's passive is going to be niche. You get bonus movement speed when walking around walls, right? It's okay. Talon's passive is... okay, this is an interesting one because Talon's passive can work on other champions, and the detonation can also work on other champions, so I'm going to put it in pretty good. I think some champions can make use of a lot of it. Does it have a cooldown though? Oh, there's no cooldown, so you can just keep refreshing this over and over. Okay, it's busted. Never mind. Like, imagine... well, no, it has to be abilities and then proc by dam. Rather, it's abilities and then proc by auto attack. So maybe it's just in pretty good. Tarek's passive is pretty good. You get 2 free attacks. It's kind of like Sylas, Riven, Bel'Veth kind of thing. And then you also can reduce cooldown of your basic abilities. So it can be it's a pretty good passive. I wouldn't put it in busted because you need to have someone who can once again spam both abilities and auto attacks. So not every champion can make use of this. You can maybe put it on Lucian actually, right? Because it's essentially a better Lucian passive. Actually, that's a good point. if we're putting Lucian in there, then Tarek will definitely be up here because Tarek's passive is a better Lucian because it's it's not 2 attack fires, it's just 2 attacks after. So, oh jeez. But that cooldown reduction thing is really good. Even if you don't have armor, like just 100% attack speed with next 2 attacks, and then the cooldown reduction. I'm gonna put in busted actually. I think that's pretty busted. Teemo, bad. No one will want Teemo's passive. Not even Teemo likes his own passive. I feel like Teemo would rather have Brand passive. Thresh. Thresh's passive it's okay. It's okay. You get, I'm pretty sure the armor growth condition, yeah, that if this was attached to Thresh and not on his passive, like just an innate property of him, then maybe this passive would be really good because you can get a lot of ability power and armor, but because you can't build armor on your own, I don't think it's good. Tristana, pretty good. Free attack range on your basic attacks, and then if you have an ability with a targeted cast range, that would also increase too. So yeah, it's a decent passive. Trundle's passive is okay. It's kind of like Cho'Gath, only you don't have to actually kill the target to get used to it, but probably better to have something like Ahri or Lilia or something like that. I think the reason why I put Ahri higher up than Trundle is because Trundle is based on max health, which may or may not be that good depending on the champions you're fighting, whereas Ahri's a flat amount, and flat amount can work for certain champions. Tryndamere's passive is niche but has a use. It gives you crit damage, or not crit damage, it gives you crit rate, 40% crit rate. For AD carries, they might want that, right? But there are 2 champions who have a better crit passive than this. Twisted Fate is niche but usable. You get gold, or you get bonus gold from killing enemies. Some champions who really want to get power spikes can make use of this, and other champions it's not really that good. Twitch's passive is okay. For some champions, they can probably apply a lot of basic attacks much faster than Twitch, right? If you had, let's say, Urgot passive, but Urgot would rather have Darius passive instead. So Twitch passive is like an infinitely worse version of Darius passive. You could do a lot more damage with the bleed if you build AP, but I still think that it'd be better to have some of these passives instead. Udyr, it's okay. You don't get the Awakened Spirit kind of thing, but you get Monk Training, which is, again, another 2 basic attacks within 4 seconds. It's a worse version of Tarek's passive, but it's usable, right? I wouldn't say it's bad, it has a use. Urgot's passive is horse. This thing is balanced because Urgot has no easy way to go to other sides of a champion, but this thing does so much freaking damage. It's a completely absurd ability, and I feel like so many champions would be able to abuse this to high heaven. Vars is, it's okay. Bonus attack speed, I think there are better attack speed passes out there, like again, Kayle. Kayle is definitely better than Vars in that regard. Vayne's passive is okay. Other champions might have a better way to get more movement speed, so I'm gonna say Vayne's it's okay, it could be usable. Veigar's passive is busted. Cassiopeia. Need I say any more? Vel'Koz's passive is okay. So Vel'Koz is weird because the claws is just 2 abilities, right? So you can do true damage by applying a lot of abilities on them. So, AP champion like Cassiopeia. Or not even Cassiopeia, it might even be good on someone like AP Ezreal, right? You can do AP Ezreal, or you could do someone with a very quick trade combo, like let's say Azir might want that. Azir could use that because I'm pretty sure it counts as spell effects. No, those count as auto attacks. So maybe Talia? Oh yeah, Talia can use Vel'Koz passive. Vex, broken. It is a similar component to Annie, only instead of a it's not as reliable as Annie, I don't think, because you can't like do it quickly, but you can also just do bonus damage with the bloom part right here. So you get the detonation damage. It's okay. And it also has a knockdown passive, so it can be used to interrupt dashes. So it's a more situational Annie passive, but still just as good. Vi's passive. Vi's passive is okay. It would be really good if you had denting blows, but without denting blows, it's like a slightly more, I guess, conditional Malphite shield, Yasuo shield, stuff like that. If it had this, then yes, some champions could definitely abuse that. Viego's passive busted, you get to turn to other champions, right? I think we can all agree that this would be stupid on every other champion, and that's just stupid again, damn it. Victor is question mark because it's stacks, right? So you don't have evolutions on other abilities. Vladimir's passive is okay. You get bonus AP based on your health and bonus health based on your AP, so you could maybe try some kind of weird fudgery with Vladimir and Scion W, I guess? You could do that, maybe? Volibear's passive is pretty good. It is a, it's kind of like Kale's passive, only you get more on-demand value at the beginning of the game in exchange for less. Kale's passive is better because you get the same kind of like AoE wave clear type thing, but you get more damage from that. But I think both of them have the same kind of attack speed scaling metrics, so it's a worse Kale passive. Also, you know, Kale makes you a ranged champion. Warwick is, it's okay. It's on-hit damage, on-hit magic damage, and on-hit healing. It would be a lot better if there was actual, like, oh, there are AD ratios and AP ratios to it. Okay, so then maybe it might be good. I'll put it in pretty good. That healing part is also super important to mention, right? You can give this to someone who can heal a lot. You can give it to like an AP champion or an AD carry champion. I'd say there are a lot of AD carries that would want this. Wukong, it's okay. You get bonus armor and bonus HP regeneration whenever you attack enemy champions. Some champions can do that a lot more, but I would say that like something like Warwick or Set passive might be a lot better. Zaya's passive, because you can't control the feathers, it's okay. Or like you can't recall the feathers. You still can use the feathers, you get AoE attacks in that regard, but you just can't recall them with a Blade Caller. Xerath passive is okay. It's not bad, some champions will really want that, but then you have other champions that can restore more mana and then do other stuff. So, like, I don't know, what's another champion that can restore mana with their abilities? Like, I just think that there are better passives out there than Xerath. Xin Zhao is a 3-hit passive on proc, and it heals you for a portion of the damage dealt. Or no, heals you for like max health. Some champions can heal a lot more off of this, some might not. So I would say it's pretty good. Ever since they changed it to where it's based on max health, it gives you neutral sustain, right? So long as you're attacking something, and it scales off AP, so you can give this to an AP on-hitter champion. Maybe, I don't know, Diana or something, I'm not sure. Yasuo and Yone, both in Busted. Making it so you can get 100% crit chance on 2 items, and Yasuo gets a shield, Yone does hybrid damage. So these two are basically better versions of Tryndamere. I don't know how many other champions would. No, actually, I know many AD carries would love to have either of these champions passes. Yorick is question mark because it's ghouls, right? You can't, you know. Yumi is, it's okay. It's every so often you get, I believe you recover, you heal, and then you get bonus range. That's about it. It's okay. Like, it's... Their uses, I don't think I'll say worse. You don't get to heal your ally for the same amount, so actually maybe it might just be bad. I feel like it doesn't do enough to actually be usable, so I'll put it in bad. Zack's passive is broken! Why is it broken? Because this part right here. This part right here. Essentially, if you have damaging abilities, these are basically they're all damaging abilities. So if you have any champion with damaging abilities who can spam them, they can heal for a huge amount. You only heal for 4% because you won't have Let's Bounce, unless you want to add that clause of like, oh, leveling up your ultimate increases it, in which case this will be one of the best passes in the game. It's balanced on Zack because he pays HP cost, but on champions that don't, this is essentially an infinitely better Garen passive, right? Or like Warwick passive or something. Or it's like a Warwick passive for abilities. Zed's passive, it's okay. On half HP targets or less, you do bonus magic damage. There are better ones out there. Zeri's is question mark because she has a really weird basic attack that is really weird. I mean, yes, you can use this on other champions, but I don't know. No, it's because they need that Q, right? You're transforming the Q. Or no, wait. That's not true. Her basic attack is not her Q, or her passive is not her Q. It just makes it so that your auto attacks don't apply on-hit effects, it applies spell damage, and you get this. But you need her basic attack to charge up this or to move around. But it still could use. You could still use it outside of Zeri, but I would just say bad. Ziggs is niche but usable. If you want to be a split pusher or something like that, this could be really valuable, but otherwise, not so much. Zillion's passive, niche but usable. It's experience. And kind of like Neela, where maybe some champions might want to power spike faster, but you can't use this on yourself, you can only use this on other champions. Zoe, it's okay. After using an ability, your next attack does bonus damage. I think Silas is still better, but maybe people might want to use Zoe's, I'm not sure. And Zyra is question mark because it's her plants. Oh my goodness, this video is going to be like 50 minutes long after all the cutting, but there you go. I think that was pretty consistent with my my rationale and my criteria this time around. Maybe some champions could be adjusted one or the other, but now let's talk about the top 10. So, top 10, let's see. I'm gonna definitely put Darius up here. I'm gonna put Karthus up here because free firing for 7 seconds with no mana cost and no target ability, and you do a lot of damage. This could be super broken on some champions. Let's see, what else is there? There's, I think Kale passive should also be up there for the sheer fact that you can turn into a ranged champion and then do a lot of damage with it. Maybe, let's see here. Set passive has to go up there. Set definitely has to be up there. This is so freaking good. It's like an extension of Akshan's passive, just with instead of the 3-hit passive and shielding and whatnot, it gives you the HP regeneration. And or it also does more damage with the second hit. The second hit does more damage. Shen's passive is definitely going up there. Zack's passive is going up there. Infinite sustain, infinite shielding. And then we have Rengar's passive. Huge amount of AD, right? Like you get a huge amount of AD. You can jump off brushes. You become any melee champion would want to have this because you get tons of AD and the ability to jump to champions for gap closing. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. Who wants to be here? Maybe Annie. Annie, right? Do we want Annie or do we want... I would say Annie, because being able to stun, like, a lot of champions, not just Cassiopeia and Ryze, a lot of champions have abilities that can be spammed very frequently, and being able to stun with your next damaging or next spell effect, I guess, that can be abused by a lot of champions. I think that'd be really good. But is it top 10? Like, are there better passes out there? I kind of want to put Ornn in top 10, but it's not that good. It's not that much because it only gives you an HP, armor, and magic resist. It doesn't give you other stats. Do I want to give, let's say, Veigar passive? No, because it's only on AP champions. But then again, Darius is only on AD champions. Like, but Veigar, not as much immediate value. Like, what? Dang it, who wants to be the last one? Is it going to be Annie? Or Mordekaiser? Mordekaiser, maybe? Or Kayn. But Kayn takes a while. Like, you don't get the benefits of your passive until later. So, but if you do, when you do, like, it could be so broken on some champions. I think I'm going to just put Annie here. I think Annie is one of the more universal passives that could be considered top 10, but yeah, there we go. That is the list. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's going to be a long video. I feel sorry for whichever editor has to cut this down. Actually, not really, because they don't have to put anything on screen since I show a lot of the abilities, but maybe they might. Either way though, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my ultimate tier list video if you haven't yet. That one wasn't as clean in terms of consistency with criteria, but even so, hope you liked that one. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next episode. We're gonna do Qs next, so stay tuned for that. Take care, guys.